After your computer, welcome to CIS180. This is Professor Chuck Conkle. I want to jump right to the email which references this instruction of installing Visual Studio 2010. I recommend the Visual Basic Express Edition, and it's free to students to download. It takes about 20 minutes with a cable modem. So I'll go ahead and run you through how to do that. It's here in this section here. And you'll click on this link here to the Express Downloads. Then you'll go to scroll down till you find Visual Basic 2010 Express. You'll click this Install Now English. And once it downloads successfully, it'll be a file name vb_web.exe. You'll run that file. Once you run that file, it'll go through multiple setups here, as this screen here depicts. Once it's finished, it'll ask you to restart your computer. Once you restart your computer, you're going to have Visual Basic 2010 Express installed. It is restarted after installing, going through the setup on Visual Studio 2010 Express. It'll begin loading components, and this will take a while. I'm going to go ahead and pause the podcast and then come back when this piece is finished. After it's finished installing, it'll ask you to restart your computer again. I'm going to go ahead and pause the podcast and come back after the computer's restarted. Okay, the computer restarted, and now setting up and installing more components. I'm going to go ahead and pause the podcast and come back after this next step is complete. Once Microsoft Visual Basic 2010 Express has been installed successfully, you'll get this message on the screen. Go ahead and click the exit button. And then you're going to be able to go to this All Programs, Microsoft Visual Studio 2010 Express, Microsoft Visual Basics 2010 Express. Click on that. And we'll go ahead and create our first Hello program. And talk a little bit about the navigation of the screen, where objects and items are, and how to build your first Windows application. It will have to load some settings, which should take a few minutes. Okay, now we're ready to begin creating our very first Windows application using Visual Basic 2010 Express. We're going to go over some navigation items here first. On the right side of your screen, you'll see Solution Explorer. This is where you're going to see all objects that you add to your application, like forms, classes. On the left, if you hover over the toolbox and click on the Auto Hide button, it should pin in there your toolbox, which we'll use in just a little bit. Then in the middle part here, you have the selection to create a brand new project or open an existing project. Let's go ahead and click on New Project. Gives you some options of what to create. We're going to create this semester Windows Forms Applications, which is a Windows application. Go ahead and click on that. Then let's name this Hello Program. Click OK. And before we begin adding anything to this application, we're going to go ahead and save it and talk about where it saves all the files to. If you click the Save All button here, this prompt will come up. By default, Visual Studio is going to save all projects in Documents and Settings, your username, My Documents, and then Visual Studio 2010 and Projects folder is where everything will be created. Once you've named a program, you generally don't have to touch this area at all. It'll keep the name that you named the program. Go ahead and click Save. And over here on the right is the Solution Explorer I talked about earlier. You'll notice the form file that's added by default to a default Windows application. The name of the program is Hello Program. Down here is properties of this form or any object you might have selected. The first thing we're going to do is click on the blue bar here with your mouse. Just left click, it'll highlight it. We're going to change some things here. Notice it says Form 1 as the name of this form. And a form in Windows is just that. It's a place to put buttons, text boxes, objects, pictures into, say, a program like Notepad. It's created in a form like this. And so what we're going to do is take your mouse, and there's a slider bar here in the Properties window, and slide all the way to the top. All forms, and you'll learn more about naming conventions, but the object naming conventions for form starts with FRM for the name. So we're going to do FRM, and we're just going to simply title this one Hello, because it's a Hello program. And that's the name of the form. Once you type that in, we're going to scroll down to the text portion, which you'll note says Form 1, which is right here. It says Form 1. We're going to change this text to Hello Program. Hit Enter. As soon as you hit Enter, you'll notice it'll show up now in the title of this form. Now we're going to go ahead and hit the play button, which is a start debugging, or you could also do Control F5, or just the F5 key on your keyboard. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the play button. As soon as I hit the play button, it's going to begin compiling this form. And now this is a freestanding application with minimize, expand, and close. And then also you'll notice this down here in the taskbar of Windows. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. What we're going to do is we're going to add a button or a text box and a button to this form. The text box will have the user enter in their name. They'll hit the button and it'll say hello, comma, whatever name they type in the text box. So over here in the toolbox, we're going to scroll down to text box, left click and drag over to the form. And we're going to do the same thing as we did for the form area. With the text box selected, go to the property of text box 1, which is the default names it gives a text box. Name convention for text box always starts with a TXT, and we're just going to do TXT, book name, NAME, and we'll leave the text empty. Then we're going to put a button on here. Click on button, drag it below. And to select multiple objects, you can actually left click and drag over objects. I'm going to take this and select both of those and drag it up here to the upper left corner. Click on the form, and you'll see these little boxes show up in the corners of the form. I can left click on the bottom right box and resize this to be a little smaller. And I might want to take and reselect these and center it into the middle of the form. I'm also going to put in here a label. Click on a label and put it there. So let's go back to the button and click on that. Button naming conventions always start with BTN. And we're going to type BTN hello. And text submit. In fact, let's change that BTN hello to BTN submit. There we go. The label, click on that. We're going to the name of that. LBL is the beginning of every name for a label. We're going to do LBL. Description. And go to the text property and type in please enter full name. So we have a label, text box, and a button. Now what we're going to do is when the program runs, the user is going to enter their name in the text box, click the button, and we'll see what happens. So let's go ahead and double click on the button. Double left click on the button. It'll bring us down to the code view of this application. The button submit click event. This is actually the click event of the button. Button is the object, click is the event. There's more events than click, but the one we're going to use for this one is click. And what we're going to do in this one is we're just going to do a simple message box. Me dot let's just do MSG box. It'll be simpler for you. We'll learn different types of message box, but we'll just use message box. MSG box. And let's go ahead and put in hello, comma, space, and end quote, space, ampersand. It's going to concatenate the string together. TXT name, right parentheses. So when the user clicks on the submit button, it's going to pop up a message that says hello, comma, and then whatever they put in that text box. I'm also going to put up here at the top, create a new line above here, put a apostrophe here, and we're going to put a comment in here, description of what this is. Hello program. Prompt. And for all the applications, you will also put some information above the public class. For instance, your name, the application, hello program. And this is just to show when you come back later what the program is for. Date, and class. Go ahead and do a save all. Go ahead and go back to our form. Let's run and test it. Go ahead and click the debug button. Here it is. Please enter full name. Go ahead and put Chuck Conkle. Click submit. And there's my message box. Hello, Chuck Conkle. Now let's go ahead and talk real quick about once you finish an application, how to package it and send it to each week's Dropbox. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this. Go to my computer. My documents, Visual Studio 2010, projects, there's the Hello program. And if I drill down even, well, before I go further, this here is a solution file for the Hello program that is needed to open up the program subsequent times. In the Hello program is multiple files and folders. Just real quickly explain some of these files here. Every form will have 3 files. Here's a designer form, which is a GUI interface, so you drag and drop items on like we did label, text box, and button. This is a code behind, and then this is a resource file. So this is the design form, which you'll notice when I hover my mouse over that, it's a form1.vb. But you'll notice here in the Solution Explorer, you'd only see 1 file. To see all 3 files, all you have to do is click on this Show All Files, and you'll notice you get to see now all the files that that you see here in the Hello Program folder. There's actually a plus symbol to the left of the form1.vb. The form1.vb is a designer form, made up of a designer form and a resource form. .vb is the code view, and then you also have, and you'll notice it says here at the end of this string, if I hover my mouse over it, that this is the .vb form or code view where you type in the code. The next one is the actual design. It says design at the end in brackets. But let's go back to the folder here. So there's my forms, or my form, the Hello program project files that's needed. The object folder initially will have some information about the file. But the one we're going to be interested mainly for this semester is the bin folder. The bin folder, you'll notice, has a debug and a release folder. By default, when you're debugging an application, creating it, it puts some multiple files in here. XML, an application file, a debug database file, and then this executable file, this .exe. If I double click on this .exe file within the bin debug folder, notice what happens. It starts the application outside of Visual Basic running. So this application can actually be dumped in any folder on the computer and run. Now you'll find out this semester there are some programs that get larger and bigger that need more than just the executable file to run. But this is a simple Hello program, and it can run just with this one file in a folder somewhere on your computer. So to package each week your programs, it's pretty simple. You'll browse out to the project folder, which if I go all the way back, so my documents, Visual Studio 2010, projects, and then the name of the folder is going to be what you name the program to be when you begin the project. All I need you to do is right click on that original folder, send to compressed zip folder, and then this file is what you'll actually send me in the Dropbox each week starting next week. Now just for practice this week, I'm going to go ahead and put in week 1 a practice Dropbox so you can begin practicing submitting a Hello program. So that concludes week 1 on installing Visual Studio 2010, creating your very first Hello program. Make sure that you have purchased your book in the bookstore. Also, USB thumb drive is just to store all your files on there, just in case your computer does crash and burn and you don't lose your files. It's always good to have a USB thumb drive. Hope for a great semester. Each week I will have a podcast like this so you can watch and know what you're going to be going over that week, along with a step-by-step from beginning to end of the program you'll be creating. If you have questions, you can always email me in the Eagle class for CIS180. I will also be putting a chat module in RVC Eagle for the class in the coming weeks, to where you can chat if I'm on Eagle, and you can access the chat at any time, and I'll be more glad to answer your questions. So let's have a great semester, and if you have any questions, again, email me.